Hi kiddos! So today I'm going to be reading Who Was Jackie Robinson? I'm only going to do the first two chapters and then we'll keep up with this book as the time goes on when you're at home. So, who was Jackie Robinson? Let's start off by looking at the table of contents in the front of the book. So the first chapter we're going to read is Who Was Jackie Robinson? And then the second chapter we're going to read today is Born in the South. This book was written by Gail Herman and illustrated by John O'Brien. So, who was Jackie Robinson? July 23rd, 1962, National Baseball Hall of Fame Museum, Cooperstown, New York. Jackie Robinson stepped up to a mic, not home plate. He wore a suit and tie, not a ball uniform. At 43 years old, Jackie had been retired from the Brooklyn Dodgers for 5 years, yet the crowd cheered as loudly as if he'd just hit a World Series home run. Jackie faced the smiling crowd. About 2,000 people had gathered on Main Street in Cooperstown, New York. They were sitting and standing on the lawn in front of the National Baseball Museum Hall of Fame. Jackie's mother, wife, and children were there. So was Branch Rickey. He had hired Jackie. Many people didn't know who Jackie had also traveled long distances to see him enter the Baseball Hall of Fame. Jackie felt proud and grateful. Growing up, he never thought something like this could happen to him. He thanked everyone, all of the people, he said, throughout this country who were just so wonderful. Baseball is a game of high and low, streaks and slumps. It's a tough sport, and it was tougher for Jackie than for any other baseball player of this time. Why? Jackie Robinson was black. In 1947, when he joined the Brooklyn Dodgers, he was the first and only African American on the team. No other major league team had black players. It was an all-white sport. And it had been that way for more than 50 years. When Jackie was growing up, blacks and whites did not have the same chances in life. And in baseball, no blacks played on the National or American League teams. Many people thought black athletes didn't have the talent, drives, or smarts. Is that right of them to think that? No. Jackie proved these people wrong and made history. Now, in Cooperstown, Jackie was making history again. He was the first baseball player to enter the Hall of Fame. The plaque for Jackie had listed all of his amazing statistics. However, there was nothing about being the first black player. Jackie hadn't want any mention of that. He wanted his plaque to honor his ability, and the same way it did for every other Hall of Famer. But there was no denying it. Jackie Robinson changed his sports history. He was not only a baseball hero, he was a civil rights hero too. So that's a picture of his plaque. So chapter 1, Born in the South. On January 31st, 1919, Jack Roosevelt Robinson was born in the town of Sharo, Georgia. For a black family, living in the Deep South was tough. Jackie's parents had been slaves. His parents farmed land as sharecroppers. That meant they didn't have their own piece of land. A white farmer did. Jackie's mother and father would plant and hoe the harvest crops. Then they had to give their part of their earnings to the farmer. There was never much money left over. Jackie was the youngest of 5 children. Brothers Edgar, Frank, Mac came first, then sister Willa Mae, and then finally Jackie. There were many mouths to feed. Life got tougher when Jackie's father walked out the door and never came back. Now his mother, Mally had to care for her children and run the farm all by herself. The 1920s were a scary time to live in Georgia. If you were black, there were race riots. White people burned down churches and schools. Mally wanted her children to be safe. She wanted them to feel equal in everyone and anyone, no matter their skin color. What could she do? Where could Mally find a better life for her kids? Mally had relatives in Southern California. She'd heard things were different there for black people, so she packed up all of family belongings. Jackie was only 16 months old when the Robinson family boarded a train that took them all the way across the country. At midnight, the number 58 train headed west. The trip took more than a week. Finally, the Robinsons passed through Los Angeles. It was nighttime. Lights were glowing up and down the mountainsides. Mally thought it was so beautiful. She only had $3 in her pocket, but she sure had hope. Is $3 a lot of money? Back then, it might have been a lot of money, yeah. But today, it's not very much. Chapter 2. A New Home. Mally found work as a maid. She also took on cooking and cleaning jobs. She was able to buy a house in Pasadena, 10 miles from Los Angeles. All the Robinsons' neighbors were white, and most people were not happy when they moved in. Some even tried to make the Robinsons leave. They called the police when the children played in the streets and said that they were too noisy. Other kids sometimes called Jackie names. Once, when he was 8 years old, a girl shouted the most hateful words Jackie knew. He wasn't afraid to answer back. Mally always stood up for her family, but she was calm and polite. Over time, the neighbors grew respect to Jackie's mom. The family settled in. They grew fruits and vegetables in the backyard. Mally sat in a rocking chair on the front porch and told stories. Even in California, Jackie knew there were rules blacks had to follow. He was only allowed to use the city's swimming pool one day each week. He had to sit up high in the balcony at the local movie theater. Can you imagine only being able to use the pool once a week? In the summer, we go to the burn pool twice a week. That's not fair, is it? Because Mally worked such long hours, often Jackie's sister, Willa Mae, took care of him. She was only 2 years older. Still, she bathed young Jackie, fed him, and dressed him. While Willa Mae started kindergarten, she took Jackie along. He'd sit in the sandbox outside the school. Willa Mae would watch him through a window. She made sure her little brother didn't get into any trouble. That's Willa Mae watching little Jackie in the sandbox at school. Finally, the day came when Jackie would go to school too. Right from the start, his new classmates saw how fast he ran. Kids always wanted to race Jackie. He always had a ball in his hand, Willa Mae once said. In dodgeball, for example, Jackie would twist and turn, avoiding the ball. He always ended up the winner. When Jackie was about 11, times grew even more difficult for millions of families in the United States. It was the Great Depression. Businesses were failing. People were out of work. It was harder than ever for Mally Robinson to make a living. Trying to help, Jackie took odd jobs. He had a paper route, he mowed lawns, but always, he wanted to play ball, and he wanted to win. He liked to be the best, and he would be unhappy at school the days that he lost. Others would shrug it off. Not Jackie. There's Jackie throwing the paper on his mail routes, so he'd be like a mailman today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Next week, I will be reading Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 of this book.